Well, I think walls, fences, they can mean different things to different people. So take someone who's in prison. I mean, they signify the loss of freedom, right? They're trapped, unable to go where they want, when they want. They're kept away from enjoying a lot of the good things of life. In fact, I think it's just human nature. Whenever we encounter a barrier that's marked keep out, it's like we can't help but wonder if something desirable is on the other side. That's how it is. And I think that's how a lot of people view God's commandments, as if they're this denial of freedom that deprives us of something that we should be able to enjoy. In fact, Genesis 3 tells us that the serpent tempted Eve to think in that exact way. Remember, the Lord had given them just one simple prohibition, right? They couldn't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But remember what the serpent said to Eve? He says, for God knows, when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. So what did Eve do? She didn't want to miss out, right? So rather than trusting the boundaries that God had set, she disobeyed. And we all reap the consequences of that. But I think there's a better way for us to think about boundaries. Think about it. When you see a fence along a dangerous cliff, right, it's a good thing. It keeps us from stumbling over the edge and hurting ourselves. Or if you were under attack, the walls of a fortress then provide protection and strength and even comfort from all that's going on outside. And then we also, we mark the borders, the boundaries to identify what's ours, what we own, a piece of property that's valuable, the place we call home. And so I want to suggest to you that we need to see God's commandments from that perspective, that they are the boundaries that we need. And I think that mindset is going to help us to understand the 10 Commandments. Now, 8 of the 10 are prohibitions, right? They say, thou shalt not. But when you look at them in the context in which they're given, in the book of Exodus, and in relation to the rest of biblical teaching, I think we'll see the benefit, the positive side of each commandment. That rather than restraining us and holding us back, they point us to positive values. They help us live in fellowship with God according to His good and perfect design. So over the course of this study, we'll make our way through Exodus 19 through 24. Now, that section of the book describes how God established His covenant with the people of Israel. It's often called the Book of the Covenant. And chapter 19 will serve as our introduction today. But it'll also be helpful for us, before we get into the commandments themselves, to consider what the New Testament has to say about how Christians should relate to the Old Testament law. We'll talk about that next week. Now then, rather than just proceeding verse by verse through chapters 20 through 23 of Exodus, we're going to devote a Sunday to each of the 10 Commandments. From chapter 20. And then we'll see how that principle is applied to various situations in chapters 21 through 23, and then how it's expressed and also later in the New Testament. So by the time we conclude, we'll have have covered all the verses in this part of Exodus. And so my prayer as we begin is that we would learn to delight in the law of the Lord.